Here's a serious question. How do you beat AI detection? At Content at Scale, we have a free AI detector. It actually ranks #1 for this phrase in Google, and we see thousands of people put it to use on a regular basis. There's also other tools out there like originality.ai and GPT-0 where you can check your content and see how it scores, whether it's robotic or human sounding. Our AI detector is free, and you can see sentence by sentence how to reword or restructure something so that you're not in the dark whenever it comes to, well, what do I actually fix in this article and how do I make it more human sounding? So let's talk all things how to beat AI detection, and I'm going to give you some real life examples of what a human writer has written on their own and what it looks like to have AI write something and run those two things through an AI content detector. You might be really surprised at the outcome. Because of how far AI writing has come, AI writing can now pass as fully human. So let's get into it. So when it comes to how to beat AI detection, it really all comes down to your sentence structure and your word choices. If you sound like a robot, you're gonna trigger, oops, this sounds like a robot wrote it. And this is the same for AI writing technology as well. If it's not sophisticated, if it's not at a level that sounds human, it's going to trigger, this sounds like a robot wrote it. In the end, an AI content detector forces writers to write and get better at their craft. Something that I'm talking a lot about is a framework I built called the Craft Framework. This drives our AIO methodology. And to learn more about that, be sure to read the blog where I break down the AIO methodology. And there's YouTube videos on our channel, Content at Scale on YouTube as well, breaking this down. So basically the AIO method is AI is now your baseline writer, and then you're humanly optimizing it. So those two layers now replace multiple human layers in the SEO content world, where it usually took a human writer, a human editor, maybe even a third party to get that content out. But in the Craft Framework, what I teach is that you have to follow certain steps in order to produce good content that passes AI detection. You have to cut the fluff. You have to review, edit, and optimize your work. You have to add visuals, media. You have to tell its story. You have to fact check. And lastly, you need to trust build with your own personal touch and tone. So a human content writer stepping into this AIO world should be thinking in terms of how do I edit? How do I become a better editor? How do I optimize this content so it's the best it can be before it goes out? So for a real life guide on how to beat AI content detection, for this video, I pitted a human writer, completely human, against our own AI writer at Content at Scale. So here we have a content piece by a human writer. Her name is Susan. She wrote this sample for me when applying to a job. We hire a lot of freelance writers. So the topic was how to build a content strategy. And this is what she wrote. And this is actually very common to what you'll see from a writer if you put out a writing job and you get, hundreds of applicants that aren't maybe the best at writing yet, or they're new at it, or English is not their first language. So this writing sample represents the majority of writing samples you would see if you put a writing job together. Now here's an example of a full blog that was written by Content at Scale in under 4 minutes. We had an 1,800 word blog. We put about 30 minutes of editing into this, so not a ton of extra work, applying the Craft Framework to make it better. So what we're going to do is take the first 3 paragraphs of each of these content pieces, one human, one fully AI, and we're going to see what kind of scores they get in our AI content detector. And of course, this is the one at Content at Scale, but we're also going to run it through originality.ai and GPT-0. So here's what Susan's completely human content writing scored, a 66%, likely to be both robotic and human. The sentences she was writing were not unique, not original, somewhat predictable, and there was a high probability that this was written by a robot, even though the tool doesn't know the difference, so it doesn't know if Susan actually wrote this herself or if she had AI write it. However, we know that Susan fully humanly wrote this, and the problem here is that she sounds like a robot. She hasn't fine-tuned her writing skills just yet. And again, this is what you're going to see in like 90% of writers whenever they apply to a writing job. So let's take the first 3 sentences of what Content at Scale wrote and run it through the content detector. And by the way, off the bat, this is really good content. The first few sentences are so much more engaging than the ones that Susan wrote. I cannot believe how far AI has come to be able to write content this good. I mean, I think Ernest Hemingway would flip over in his grave. Many businesses do not employ an in-house creative team and choose to outsource content creation instead. If we're comparing agencies versus freelancers versus AI for content creation, who would come out on top? Today's blog post will explore the pros and cons of using creative agencies versus freelancers versus AI for content creation. We'll also provide tips on how to manage each type of content team effectively and ensure high-quality output from all sources involved in the project. If you compare that to Susan's writing is actually quite stale. Content strategy, simply put, is the strategy behind the content you create. It involves knowing what your goals are for your blog, newsletter, or social media, and then using that knowledge to determine what kind of content will help you achieve those goals. You can then decide what tone of voice would best suit that content so it can match your brand. That's pretty mediocre, blasé content. I can tell you, if I was Googling this topic and I landed on that as a blog, I would probably bounce. It's not unique, it's not informative, and it's not good. So the fact that AI can write better language, better sentences than a human writer is a big reason to make the switch today to AI versus human. Not to mention all of the time and money savings you get. Hello. And by the way, if we ran this content through originality.ai, here are the results, because we don't just want to be biased and use our own technology, right? If I work at content at scale, well, you just don't want to hear about that. You want to hear about all of them. So let's be objective and do that. So we paid for originality.ai, we paid for this content scan, and here's what happened. It said that content at scale content was 97% original, 3% AI, and it said that Susan's content was 94% AI. GPT-0 had the same results, saying that Susan's content was highly likely to be AI. So how do you write less like a robot? Don't take it personally. You know, we all started here, even me as a writer back in 2011. I'm sure my writing rated as robotically written too. It just means you need to get better as a writer, and you need to hone your craft and perfect your writing skills. So first, use an AI detector. Know if your content rates as humanly written or robotically written. And of course, ours at Content at Scale is completely free to use. Next, follow my craft framework. C stands for cutting the fluff. You need to relentlessly edit the content. Remember the first few sentences of Susan's work. They were repetitive. They were fluffy. This is the problem not only with AI, but with human writers as well. Our first draft tends to be full of crap. Ernest Hemingway said it best. The first draft of anything is crap. So be relentless with your AI writer and cut the fluff. Next, you need to review, edit, and optimize. Make sure the keywords are in there enough times. Make sure you review the content so it sounds good and it has the right flow. Next, you need to add images, visuals, and media. And then you need to fact check. Make sure the facts are accurate. Lastly, trust build with personal story, touch, tone, and the right links to the right places. Besides using the craft framework and an AI detector, the last tip I have for you is just to practice sounding more human. Write like you would talk in a conversation over coffee with a friend. If you were able to sit down with your ideal client, or if you're writing for a client, that client's client, what would you tell them over coffee? What would be some ways you would get to know them, get them to know, like, and trust you? What language did they use that you can adapt into your writing? Write like your audience speaks. Get to know them, their style, and their tone, and then match that up to your content writing. Honestly, with where we're headed, with 80% or more of writing jobs going to go bye-bye now that AI writing is here and it's here to stay, the best thing you could do is learn how to beat AI detection scores and get better and better at your writing skills. Remember that these scores don't actually identify who is human and what a robot is. All it identifies is how robotic does this writing sound? Does it sound like a robot wrote it? And for a lot of humans, they're failing that test. So you can be a writer that doesn't fail that test. And you can go further than 90% of the average writers out there that aren't adapting to these times. Because quite frankly, we're in similar times to when the internet came out in the 90s and people said, hey, this is going to be a passing fad. It's going to go away. Like that newspaper headline, right, from Daily Mail in 2000. But the truth was the internet didn't go away. It's here to stay. So AI writing is much like that. And you even being here, getting to the end of this video, watching this through is a big plus for you and your career and where you will head, either as a marketer, writer, agency owner, you name it. The world is your oyster, but you have to look at things from the right perspective. Embrace the change, head into these new zones, don't fear them, and learn and adapt and get better. It's all you can ask of yourself. And I have huge respect for you that you even did that. So cheers to you, cheers to the future of AI writing. Be sure to subscribe to our channel if you haven't at Confident Scale, because we're talking about all of these things on a very consistent basis every single week. Our goal is to not only help you stay ahead of the trends, but to learn how to navigate them and make profits, not get replaced, be successful at your job. So keep watching our content to let this training, this education sink in, and drop your questions in the comments. We're always around, we're always listening, and we are open to feedback as well. So if you have questions that we haven't answered yet, drop them in the comments and we'll get back to you. Thanks for watching.